Hey, everybody, welcome to Fanboy Planet. And I am here today with a special guest who has got a graphic novel coming out, Beastlands, at the end of June in comic shops everywhere. Please welcome Curtis Clow.
Hey, Derek, thank you for having me.
It's great to meet you and have you on here. So let's get out of the gate with this. If people don't know Beastlands, and I honestly I did not until I got a hand of a preview PDF. Let's start with having you describe what it is.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. It's a small indie series that started on Kickstarter, and now with Dark Horse, they're going to be re-releasing our issues 1 through 5 that were previously self-published into a trade. So it's a fantasy action adventure. It's a world where some people have companion beasts. These beasts are like the size of a horse. They start out small, but then they can grow into the size of a horse. They're kind of more like realistic animals with these different fantastical features mixed up. They can get sick, they can get injured, they can still die. They don't have any magic abilities or anything like that. But it's about a boy that has to save his beast and friends before a tyrannical king tries to execute them all.
Yeah, and you called those beasts keepers. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what they're known in the world as keepers, and just some people through the world have keepers, and they can be like lifelong pets, like I said, that are with you for your entire life, as long as you take care of it and treat them right, and they don't get injured, sick, or anything worse.
So, what was your inspiration to do this series?
Yeah, I'm inspired by a lot of things I grew up with. Obviously, like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Digimon. Studio Ghibli is a big inspiration in all of my work. Princess Mononoke is one of my all-time favorites. But I try to put something personal and meaningful into all my stories, and this one is very much about the human and pet bond and relationship. And back in 2016, my dog was hit by a car, and luckily she survived. But it was very traumatic, where I had to carry her home in my arms. I thought she was dying at the time, and she made a full recovery, but it just took a lot of extra care and stuff. And I really tried to like put that into the heart of Beastlands, and it was a lot of inspiration towards this whole world of Beastlands.
And most of your main characters are adolescents, mid teens.
Yeah.
Was it easy to get back into the heads of being an adolescent?
Somewhat. I mean, it's a time I remember a lot. I'm about to turn 30 this year now, so I can not that far from it, but it can be tough just to get back into that headspace. But I don't know. I think it's a time that a lot of us can remember, that like high school age, and you can remember either the good times or the bad times. But yeah.
Yeah, and we did talk a little bit about the route. You started this as a Kickstarter. You self-published 5 issues. As a Dark Horse, and congratulations is picking this
Thank
up
you.
as a
Appreciate
trade.
it.
And obviously, there's a bit. There's a different level of exposure there. So what drove you to take this route? I know you've done a couple of other books before as well. Why go indie and not just try to market to a major publisher?
Yeah, we were just fairly new creators at the time when we started Beastlands back in 2018. It was my second ever comic series. It was my co-creator Joe's. It was her first comic series she's ever drawn. Surprisingly, for how amazing her art is, that
That
was
is
her first
very good
series.
art.
Yeah, she's.
Yeah.
I'm lucky to have her, as a co-creator and collaborator. But as fairly new creators back then in 2018, it's very hard to get picked up from a comic publisher. They're not likely to want to take a risk on new talent, no matter how good your pitch is. Like if you don't have a track record of putting out great books and sales and stuff, then it's just kind of hard to break in. So when you get advice from like veteran creators, like how do you break in, their advice is usually just to make something. And when you have a resource like Kickstarter, it'd be silly not to use it, where you can crowdfund and get funding for your book rather than putting everything on loans and credit cards. This is a chance to not only gain an audience over the years and keep launching new Kickstarters, but also you're getting funding for the book, and that Kickstarter is paying to pay for printing, art, shipping. Everything is going to be funded from that Kickstarter. And it was it was kind of by necessity. Like we had to use Kickstarter if we want to make this book, which I didn't mind getting my hands dirty and doing all the self-publishing stuff. I still ship books myself. I still do all of it. I'm now 15 Kickstarters in, and I don't see myself ever not using Kickstarter, even if I'm able to get funding from publishers. Like I see myself always having a line of books going through Kickstarter myself. We do really well on there. Those first few Kickstarters were definitely a grind, where we would like get funded on one of the last days. But now we've built up such an audience over the years with so many Beastlands launches, and even from my other books, that we get funded in just usually like a matter of hours, and we get usually like way over funds. So it's just in the long run, we did it out of necessity, but in the long run, I think it was beneficial for the series and beneficial for us as creators. Now now through Dark Horse, this is like a completely creator-owned deal. We still own it. We still have already kickstarted volume 2. We already have 2 issues into that, so we can still go on our own and kickstart it. But now this is a chance for us to hit like a brand new market with Dark Horse. We get comic shops, bookstores, a whole new audience of people who probably don't use Kickstarter. Some people don't even know what Kickstarter is yet still. So it's a chance for us to get a lot of new readers now.
Yeah, I mean, you did answer one of my next questions, which was the Mercy one about still maintaining the rights. But yes, I always wonder, especially over the last 2 years, where, as you said, distribution has been a little bit spotty. Maybe not as many people are going into comic shops.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I'm a little bit older than 30, so I'm not sure how people
You don't look it.
well, thank you, but how kids are coming to this kind of material. So if it's going to be on Amazon, it's going to be in your Barnes and Noble, and that's one of the advantages of Dark Horse. So that's really cool. The other thing I'd ask is, as you're an indie creator, how do you find your collaborators? It used to be that you go to DeviantArt. I've heard that's not so great a way to do it anymore. So how did you find your co-creator?
Yeah, you still have those art sites out there, DeviantArt, ArtStation and stuff, but it's hard to sift through. There's so many artists, and it's hard to find quality art. I think I found Joe's art on Twitter. I find a lot of artists on Twitter, Instagram, or just from other books, like just searching Kickstarter and backing. There's so many great books on there now. Over the years, it's just gotten better and better, and the talent's so good. And you can buy a book, and usually there are other indie creators, and they might be looking for their next gig after that book. But I found Joe on Twitter, and I think I reached out to her. And at the time, she was working in the video game industry and had never drawn a comic. I just saw some like commissioned comic pages she's done, and she took a little time to think about it, and then she joined the team. Like, I knew her art style was just perfect for the series, exactly what I had in mind for Beastlands as I was like in those early stages of writing. And luckily she joined on, and now I think she just does comics full time. She's done some books for Boom and stuff, and just lucky to have her as a co-creator and collaborator. She's just awesome.
So you were the one who discovered her, though. I mean, she's gone on to Boom.
I guess so.
And you get to say, I was the first. Excellent. And you mentioned, she's done some video game work, and you have too. So I'm thinking that as a writer, you've done a game called Deadline Defenders, and you have one coming up called Pauldron.
Yeah.
So, how do you think differently as a writer when you're building a world and a game narrative versus a comic book?
I mean, these comics are my babies. These are like I have like 4 creator-owned comics, and I just build the whole world and find like a tight-knit group. It's almost being like an indie rock band. Like, there's nobody telling us how to do it. It's just totally creator-owned. We're doing it how we want to. We're telling us the story. It's all about our intention. For these game projects, they're mostly freelance, and I'm brought in later. And I would love to like join an indie game studio or a AAA studio like early on and get to be more involved in like the writing story. But with the way games are, sometimes you're brought in like later in development, and sometimes writing is just like an afterthought. And it just depends. Every gig's different for game writing. Like, you can spend sometimes a gig is just like naming characters, naming weapons, and like weapon descriptions, character descriptions, rather than like actually like story work. It can feel like busy work, but it's still a passion. Like, I love video games just as much as I love comics, so it's just cool to get to work in that field every once in a while and work on some cool games.
Yeah. So you said you've got a volume 2 in development of Beastlands. Do you have any other projects in the wind?
Yeah, we just finished a Kickstarter. That was my 15th Kickstarter that ended like 2 days ago for my other series, Slightly Exaggerated. That one's a mini series, 4 issues, just wrapped up. It did really well. It was like 400% funded, over 1,000 backers on Kickstarter. But always working on new things. I got some freelance comics that I can't quite talk about yet, pitching to some cool publishers. I have
Maybe you'll come back and talk about it.
Yeah. Always happy to come back on. Pitching to some like dream publishers, so I'm hoping they could get accepted and we can have something to talk about later. But I have my 4 creator-owned series: Beastlands, Slightly Exaggerated, Majestic is a graphic novel that we launched on Kickstarter last year, working on that one, and my other one, The Wild Cosmos. We have 2 issues coming to Kickstarter later this year. That's the last 2 for that. So just always working, like the creator-owned comics always come first. So always new ones that I'm developing, looking for new artists to work with.
All right. And just to remind everybody, Beastlands, the trade paperback volume 1, will be in comic shops the end of June and available. How did you phrase that? For Amazon and is it just
Amazon and bookstores? Yeah. July 12th.
July 12th. Okay. So thank you very much for coming on, Curtis. And wish you the best of luck with this book. It's great.
Thank you, Derek. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on any Fanboy Planet content. And remember, use your powers for good.